Utah is going to bounce back. We both agree with that. I'm so high on their bounce back, I think they end up in Arlington. Why is that? Devin Dampier being one of the biggest reasons. I think he's a star in the making at QB. I think, Jake, he's going to end the season in the top 10 of the Heisman voting. I believe this is a transcendent quarterback. I believe he's going to be one of the 10 best quarterbacks in college football this season. One of the only quarterback in the country to throw for 2,500 yards, rush for 1,000 yards. Back with the offensive coordinator that together were fourth in yards per game a season ago at New Mexico. Devin Dampier only sacked 5 times last year. He should have been sacked 5 times alone in the 3 P4-ish teams he played, because I'm including Washington State in that as well, but only sacked 5 times. Second, according to Pro Football Focus, in forced missed tackles a season ago, with the best tackle duo in college football, maybe soon to be first round picks I'll add to, a really good offensive line. It's top 10 in the country. I like the options at running back. Questions at receiver, and a Utah defense that, even if they're a little worse to me, still going to be one of the 5 best units in the Big 12, because Morgan Scalley has that group ready to go. Love the linebackers and secondaries. Just some questions along this D-line. I think Kyle Whittingham this year will go out on top, as he's been wanting to do for what feels like the last couple with Utah.
Okay, so here's my question, JT. If you're so down on McKay Hillstead at 5'10", $190, what makes you think that Devin Dampier can overcome 5'11", 200 pounds? That makes him different. Does that make sense? That's my question here.
It does. It's just the fact that we've seen him have success. Like, he balled against Arizona
at the G6 level.
I know, but he did well against Arizona. He played well against
Arizona. Was awful.
I know, but they're still a P14.
Arizona's awful. Sorry. The bottom of the Big 12. Great. Okay, fantastic. Next.
Yeah, Auburn. He did well against Auburn, too, is the other one, too. I'm just saying he looked good. What are you going to say about our boss, Zach Blackerby's team? What are you going to say?
Auburn wasn't that good either. Zach, come at me if you want. I think Auburn's going to be better this year, but they were pretty down last year. Okay, I get why Utah fans are bullish on Devin Dampier because of the stats, but he is stepping up in the level of competition. We got to acknowledge the fact that he's stepping into a Power 4 level now. And I get the stats. They're gaudy. Trust me. I watched a lot of New Mexico football because of the Bronco Mendenhall connection and the like, and I was really impressed with Dampier. I think he is going to be at least at minimum, I'd say at minimum, an above average quarterback in the Big 12 this season. And that's far better than what Utah had a season ago after they lost Cam Rising. And I'm just not 100% convinced that he's going to, as you say, a top 10 Heisman contender. That's incredible, JT. I got to give you props, man. That is a take.
I appreciate it. I'm high on this team, man. And I really think when I look at it too, I'm not the only one. Talked to Ari Wasserman of On3 at Big 12 Media Days. He called Dampier one of the 5 most exciting players in the sport. CBS Sports also put out a list. They had Dampier in the top 10 quarterbacks. And as I mentioned, there's a number of statistics. Jake Hatch, who led college football in yards per carry last season?
Was it Devin Dampier?
It was Devin Dampier. Like, that's how good we were talking about this guy being. I understand the questions going against, even if it was, like you said, lesser P4 teams, but mostly G5 teams last year. But to me, there's a world of difference between him and McKay Hillstead, because he had, number one, he's just played and started a lot more, but he's also had success at the G5 level. And he just had success. Like, he dominated at the G5 level. So that's why I think he's ready. I'm also not going to sit here and act like, hey, I think that like that first game against UCLA, I could see him tossing a couple of interceptions there. This is a guy who did throw 12 picks last year, but it's also a guy to me that is going to have that connection with his wide receivers. They're already building it in camp. Ryan Davis being one of the ones. I just feel like, and let's also, like, everyone gets wrapped up in 12-12 touchdown to interception ratio. If you include the rushing touchdowns, he had over 30 touchdowns last season. So nearly 20 more touchdowns in total than INTs, playing with a better supporting cast. He was one of the best things about that offense a season ago too. That New Mexico defense was dreadful. So with a much better defense too, I'm expecting big things out of Dampier. I'll talk about what I think about the rest of the BYU roster. We've hit on the quarterbacks now a lot. What do you think about the rest of this Utah team outside of the quarterback position?
Oh, I think it's the best offensive line in the country. I don't have a problem saying that. I think Caleb Lomu, I think Spencer Fano, that tackle combo is special. When you have 3 other upperclassmen offensive linemen on the interior alongside them. I asked Kyle Whittingham the question at Big 12 Media Days, and he kind of demurred on it. He's like, I haven't studied the other offensive lines. I get it, but I really think that offensive line, at worst, it's top 10 at the very worst in the country. And I always trust that Morgan Scalley and Kyle Whittingham are going to have at least a good, if not great, defense, and I fully expect that they will be just fine. Now, the question I have, much like BYU has, is the defensive line for Utah. Whereas BYU picked off probably Utah's best defensive tackle, bringing Keanu Vasa south, that helps BYU. I've still got some questions on the interior of Utah's defensive line, but those will be answered in time. I expect that, as mentioned, Kyle and Morgan will get that squared away. I really do think the biggest question for me is who in the heck is Devin Dampier going to throw the football to? Because let's be honest, Utah's wide receiving core, it's a place that good wide receivers go to die, JT.
Unfortunately, it has been. I will say number one receivers have done okay there. Even
number one don't even go. What number one?
Who's Dorian Singer. He has 700 yards last year. Okay. And Devon Bailey the year before that. We got some guys, man. We got some guys, not the best guys, but we got some guys in there overall.
Your best guy left after spring ball.
I know, yeah. I actually think Tobias Merriweather's a name to keep an eye on. Back-to-back weeks, they've been raving about him. He has to put it all together. Former four-star at Notre Dame, battled injuries and inconsistencies at Notre Dame and Cal. But if he can put it all together, and we've said that a lot about Utah wide receivers before.
I was going to say, this sounds eerily familiar to literally every year I've covered Utah doing sports radio for the past 15 years in Utah.
You're right. No, and you're right. There are still questions there. The fact that you have Ryan Davis, though, coming with Devin Dampier, he had 700 yards a season ago with him, I think is exciting too. Darren Zipper's a guy who got experience, been turning some heads. Larry Simmons had 400 plus yards at Southern Miss last year. So it's not going to be the strength of this team by any stretch of the imagination, but people are going to load the box. And I think they got enough guys to win one-on-one on the outside.
I hope they do, because we have not talked about what I believe are the true X factors for both of these teams. It's the running backs, Wayshawn Parker, LJ Martin. I'm telling you, Utah football, I'm talking speaking of the state of Utah in terms of football fans, get to know those names. Wayshawn and LJ, if not, in my opinion, they're going to be top 5 backs in this conference. I've watched LJ in practice this fall already, and he looks the part. Everything I've heard about Wayshawn Parker is that he's expected to really burst onto the scene, and that's the big differentiator, I feel like, for both of these teams, JT, is if they can get the type of rushing attacks, and Aaron Roderick said it himself the second day of fall camp for BYU. He says, we expect to run the football this fall, and that is going to be the key for BYU to make whoever ends up as their quarterback comfortable, is to have an elite running game. LJ Martin, Sione Mo will be the 1-2 combo for BYU. And I'm telling you, the running games for both of these programs, we can talk about wide receivers, we can talk about quarterback play, but unless the running games show up for both of these teams, they're not going anywhere anytime fast.
I agree with that. Also, just, speaking of Martin, I haven't gotten to do this yet. So I want to say some nice things about BYU, because I already said you guys are getting over your win total.
My listeners are excited for this. Go, JT. Fire away on the Cougars.
I think Chase Roberts is one of the best receivers in the Big 12. I really like Martin. I think Carson Ryan is going to have the type of year at BYU that, had we had better quarterback play, he could have had at Utah last year. Like the interior offensive line, even though you lost Pay, I do think that's a bit of a loss there. Obviously love Jay Hill on the defense, one of the best linebacking cores in all of college football. To me, Tanu Vasa is going to be a monster this season. And I think overall, the defense, I like the pieces, but there are some unknowns I would add there too, which lead me into some of my negatives. I just want to see how that defensive line is going to gel. Outside of Robertson, who else is going to step up at receiver? No one on your receiving core had over 215 yards last year for BYU. So is Parker Kingston ready to be that guy, right? Those are the questions I still want to see. Also, I have major questions at your 2 tackle spots. So I want to see how those guys are going to come through and get along as well. So I have questions at quarterback, defensive line, and offensive tackle. Those are the 3 most important positions in football to me. That's why I think BYU will not be in contention to make the Big 12 title game by the time we get to the last week of the regular season.
Get to know the names, Isaiah Jada and Andrew Gentry, JT. They are BYU's offensive tackles, and so far, so good in fall camp. Obviously, Andrew Gentry and a certain BYU fan out there said he actually has more Rose Bowl wins than the entire Utah roster right now from his time at Michigan. That's a simple fact of life. He does have a Rose Bowl win on his resume from his time with the Wolverines. He absolutely looks like he is 100% healthy coming off a foot injury that he suffered at Michigan last year. And BYU took the rare senior you bring in as a transfer, JT, last year, and Isaiah Jada from Colorado, and redshirted him. They legitimately redshirted a senior last year, and they expect that combo right there to step in and fill the voids that they lost at tackle last year. And as I mentioned, what I've seen, I've probably watched an hour and 20 minutes of practice so far in terms of the availability that BYU offers us. And I got to say, the two of them, they look like they're ready to step up and fill the void at offensive tackle in particular.
Is that because they're not going against good defensive ends?
They are actually going against
I know they
ends that have to prove themselves, obviously. But I'm telling you, Tausili Akana, he is a transfer. Obviously, you and I called his games at Skyridge High School. He went to Texas, never really saw the field there at Texas. But if what I have seen in training camp is any indication, he's ready to burst onto the scene as a defensive end for BYU.
Top-ranked player in the state, too, at the time of his class as well. I remember that. I'll also say this, huge fan of Siale Acera. I hope he has a monster year with BYU. And I do still hope Tanu Vasa has success, and I think he will too. I think he's going to have a great year as well. And I'll also say this though, Jake, as we just kind of talk about like, hey, we're a few months away from our two teams getting the chance to finally face off against one another. I think Utah does end the streak as we sit here right now. BYU's little 2-game winning streak. I have Utah winning down south. How do you see that game playing out this far away?
3 is coming, JT. 3 is coming.
It's like your Gollum impression or something for a moment, my precious.
I'm just channeling my inner, like, I don't know, Twitter keyboard warrior right there. 3 is coming.
But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about the baseball action under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I'm using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. You know what else is available on FanDuel? The 2025 win totals for Utah and BYU. I already said I'm a little down on BYU.
Over on the Cougars.
But guess what, Jake? I'm going to take the over. 6.5 is low. And you guys have a favorable schedule, I'll say, too, with a couple of those games. So I do have BYU getting over 6.5. I'm right in that. I'm at 7 right now. I think 7-5 right now. But I think 6.5 is too low for this team that was a contender just a season ago. That's how I feel about BYU. How do you feel about Utah at over or under 7.5?
I already said I have them at 8-4 at minimum. So I'd be hitting the over on that.
We are going to agree on one thing this show, and we can both agree that you should head over to FanDuel to check out all the odds for college football, NFL, or whatever sports action floats your boat today. That's going to do it for our show today. We look forward to seeing you guys on tomorrow's Locked On Utes and Locked On Cougars.